You're listening to the Player Layer podcast. I'm your host, Ivan Alexiev, and today I've got with me Vassil Lozanov, who is a game designer, but also he organized the biggest festival here in Bulgaria called the Sofia Board Game Weekend. And we talked a lot about hosting large events like this and judging prototypes in prototype contests. And we talked about just making games. I found it to be really interesting to talk with him. Another thing I want to mention before we get into the conversation is that we've partnered up with the Board Game Design Virtual Summit, which is going to be a week-long sort of seminar, which is going to have top experts in the industry like Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games, Elizabeth Hargrave, who's the designer of Wingspan, Daryl Andrews, designer of Sagrada, and lots of other interesting people. And that's going to be from September 14th to up until the 20th. You can find out more about that if you're interested in the link, which is in the description. Thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. I'm joined today by Vassil Lozanov, who is an amazing designer. He is also an organizer of a festival here in Bulgaria, the Sofia Board Game Weekend Festival, which is an annual, I think the biggest in Bulgaria. And he's also helped a lot in the design community, as in he's made a community where designers can talk and chat and share ideas and gather. His first game was Among Thieves, which went on Kickstarter in 2017. And there's a lot of hats which this man wears, and I'd love to talk to him about it because I love the stuff that he's done. He's done so many things. So, Vassil, how are you doing today?
Hi, Ivan. I'm great. Thank you for having me here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for joining. First of all, could you tell me what you're up to now?
Sure. For the past few months, we've been dealing with the backlash from not having the festival this year, mostly because of all the COVID things that are happening all over the world, including here in Bulgaria, but also designing a few games that may be published someday, and actually having one co-design just published like 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah, what is that? Could you tell us about
it's a small game that we made for one of the municipalities here in Bulgaria. But I really can't give you more details at this point. But very soon there will be an announcement about it. Yeah, it's just a small game with cards designed for casual players who are also a type of eco activists. You'll see, I promise.
Okay, I can't wait to see about it. And how did you go about the game publishing-wise?
Publishing-wise, we had no problem this time because it's a special edition just for the municipality and also a few copies for us. So it's not going to be sold. It's going to be a gift for people who participate in some kind of activity there.
Mm-hmm. So you're producing it locally?
Exactly, yeah. We just found the print shop and printed it there. It's a new one, not the one that we are usually using, because we wanted to explore some new options for maybe the next game that we're going to publish.
Okay, that sounds really, really cool. And it's nice to have projects like this. Could you tell me about how you started out, first of all, in board games in general? And I know that you're very much into RPGs as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that it all started with my 6th or 7th birthday when I got my first game. It was a game of Monopoly, of course, from my parents. And also there's this, it's a cool story. My start in board gaming is actually really sad because I used to live far away from all my friends. So my mother and father, they would buy me games and there would be no people to play them with, because games were usually considered like, big boxes, and you can't just carry a Monopoly to school. And then after school, you can't just take 6 people and I'm living on the other side of town. Would you like to come join me for a game of Monopoly? So I used to play my board games only at my birthday parties, exclusively. Then fast forward to the year is 2006, I think, or maybe 2005, something like that. I've been playing Magic the Gathering back then. So in one of the clubs here in Sofia, there were people playing a different card game. And it was Citadels by Bruno Faiduti. So they needed one player. They invited me. I said, sure, I'll join. I joined them and I immediately fell in love with the game and also with board gaming. And then with the rise of the hobby here in Bulgaria for the past 6 or 7 years, all this time I've been a part of the community, mostly as just a regular hobby guy who buys games and goes to clubs to play them, actually play them with people. I think what happened in my childhood actually motivated me to now go about playing the games more and more and more, just as some kind of compensation.
And then when did you start designing? Was Among Thieves your first design?
Yes, it was my first design and one of actually very few designs that I finished, because all designers, I believe so, all designers have like this super long list of projects that this is a very cool idea and I have 2 mechanics for it, but also I'm maybe going to finish it in the next 5 years. So in 2016 must have been, so 10 years after the Citadels encounter, more or less. One night I was wondering about this phrase, no honor among thieves. And I said to myself, is there a game that's called No Honor Among Thieves? Because it's a rather cool name. So I plugged my computer, the laptop, and I checked for the name, and there was no such game. By the way, right at this moment, I think there are at least 3 games that use a similar name. So I just on the next day, I started thinking, okay, if there was such a game, what would it be like? So obviously a game about thieves. So what do thieves want? They want some kind of wealth. So it has to be a game about stealing things. I would like a game that's small, compact, easy to carry, because, the monopolies from when I was a kid, they weren't easy to carry. So I just want a game that you could just take with yourself and go to the pub or to the mountains, some kind of picnic, to the park, whatever, and you can easily bring with yourself. So obviously a card game. 4 hours later, I had the basic rules for the game. And then all that's changed from this point of 4-hour work was like very, very small details. But the change was really, we did like at least 200 or 300 play tests before we were ready, because there was a team at some point. My friends just joined and said, this is a cool game. It could go on Kickstarter. Kickstarter was actually cool in 2016, 2017. Yeah, I mean, you could really survive there as an independent designer, because nowadays it's big boxes of plastic figures. Among Thieves has no plastic figures in it. So it was the best of times to make the game. So yeah, about 200 or 300 play tests, maybe 400 times. I always say that there are about 400 of play tests, but maybe they were a bit less. Anyway, fewer. So we played the game a lot with my friends, then with some random people, then at some conventions that had something to do with board games, but they were not like really board game conventions. And the final product was ready, I think, about 1 year after the conception of the idea. And then Kickstarter, 1 month of no sleep. I somehow survived. Then about 2 or 3 months of production and sending the games to the people. And that's it. That's the story of the game.
At the time, you said that the conventions you went to weren't exactly board game oriented. How did you end up being involved with this, with Sofia Board Game Weekend, which is now a huge convention only focused on board games?
Yeah, well, that was the point exactly. All conventions that we had up to the first Sofia Board Game Weekend here in Bulgaria were like this big anime convention like Comic Con or something, but smaller local ones, where the board games were placed as just part of the thing. There's these cosplay things and music, K-pop, and also big shops of steampunk thematic thingamajigs and so on, and just a corner of board games. But here the community was just starting to rise. We were looking for places to play games. Clubs were opening, board game related coffee shops and bars and so on were opening here. So at some point, I just thought that we maybe need something cooler, like a convention that's focused exclusively on board games. And it all started as an idea with a friend from Serbia, by the way. We discussed it with him, something like, let's make a conference. It was supposed to be just a conference. Let's meet and talk about how we could create some kind of a community of designers, plus maybe something commercial wise here on the Balkans. So Serbia, Macedonia, Greece, Romania, plus Bulgaria, of course. But then another friend intervened, actually Peter, who's part of the Sofia Board Game Festival staff. It's actually the two of us started the festival because Peter said, okay, but why some kind of conference when we could make a convention? We could start big and see where it goes. And that's how we decided that we should try it. So we found the most underground place you could imagine. The first Sofia Board Game Weekend was hilarious. I don't remember. Were you on the first one or?
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay, I'm not surprised because it was the place was amazing, by the way, but it was like a dungeon. I mean, it was very dark. It had like at least 6, 7 separate rooms. There were staircases leading God knows where, and the coffee shop and the bar, they were beneath the ground. It was some kind of basement level. And you could, if you start from the left part of the building, you get to one place. But if you go on the staircase on the right side, it leads to a very different place. So it was like a maze. It was like a labyrinth. It was amazing. But it was not very suitable for families, for example. And this is a big part of what Sofia Board Game Weekend or any other convention we believe should be. Because, okay, so first of all, families play games. And second of all, people our age, actually, who are like first or second generation board gamers here in Bulgaria are in this point of their life where they start families and just have kids, and they would like to visit places and get their kids started in the hobby, right? So for the second year, we found a central place. You were there, I remember. Yeah. That's when we met, by the way. And I think it was a huge upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, and how did you, that first place, I know Peter, the one you mentioned, he was the owner of a board game club, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get the word out about that first convention?
Okay, so we are totally not ashamed of this. There is nothing to be ashamed of, but we just extorted all of our friends to come and also tell their friends to come. And also we reached out to all the clubs and bars and board game related places to just, we of course invited them to join as exhibitors there. So they could show their businesses, showcase what kind of games they play at their places and so on and so on. But also to maybe just tell the people who visit them, there's going to be an exclusive board game convention. You should go there. And some people actually came.
Yeah, and then the second one was a lot bigger, right? It was, I think, maybe around 2,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was in a huge hall, and you had advertising all over the city. And how did you upgrade so quickly in just a year?
Well, we just saw that the first place just wouldn't work for families, and then we thought about what was actually really exclusive about the first Sofia Board Game Weekend was the presence of international exhibitors here in Bulgaria. At this point, there were no other visits from designers from outside of Bulgaria. So basically, well, maybe because there were like, I don't know, 2 or 3 designers working officially here in our country. Maybe that's why. But it was always them and the big businesses here that have to do, the distributors, the producers of board games here in Bulgaria. But we decided that we wanted an upgrade. And for the first year, we just reached out to people on Kickstarter who were living in near and far away countries. By the way, we had like one of the exhibitors was from Russia, another one from Austria, another one from Greece, and so on and so on. So that's a very important element for our convention. And we were thinking, okay, so these people, they don't know Sofia, right? They've never been to Bulgaria. Let's start with this. We need a place that's very central, that's easy to be reached, and that's surrounded by places they could stay, because it's a 3-day convention. So it's good to be, have some hotels or guest houses from Airbnb and so on. That's why we chose the center of the city. And we saw that the hall we made the convention in was rather expensive. So what did we do? We had to spend a lot of money on the hall already. So we decided to spend a lot more money on some kind of advertising, because, if you want to fill this big hall, you need to reach out to people. So we did all the Facebook marketing, but of course we did not forget to extort our friends once again to come and also bring their friends. And so they did. Even more people actually from our circles, friendly circles, came, because it's one thing to say we're going to be in this very dungeon-like place and you might not get out of there alive. And it's a different thing to say it's the center of the city, you can't disappear there, it's amazing, it's a great hall, it's very clean, it's also very spacious, it's the light is amazing, and so on and so on. So it wasn't actually a hard sell, it was a very easy sell the second year to all the people and all the businesses, including the businesses who came from abroad, although this year we had no visitors from Russia. But anyway, it was amazing nevertheless.
Yeah, could you tell me about the game design community that's built around Sofia Board Game Weekend?
So this community goes hand in hand with the Sofia Board Game Weekend convention. Why? Well, because just a year before the first Sofia Board Game Weekend, I think it's a year about, Among Thieves, my game was actually published. And counting 2 other games from Bulgarian authors that were original, because I don't count the unoriginal copy-paste from other games, plagiarism, things that just, they appear on the market.
Well, they can be reskins, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I do not much respect them. Although there was one game I'm omitting, so I can add it. So I guess 4 games. At this point, there were 4 legitimate original games from Bulgarian authors. And I saw some interest in the community. There were a lot of people talking about, I have this design or I have this idea. It was most often, I have this idea, but I'm not sure if I could make it. After the successful Kickstarter, because Among Thieves, as you mentioned, was successfully funded on Kickstarter, people were asking, okay, so how did you do it? I mean, you're just one man or you're just 2 people. How did you manage to, update on the campaign? It was not a great campaign. I mean, it was a successful campaign. It was not like one of the Cool Mini or Not campaigns, obviously. It was a small campaign. It was a small success, but it was a success. So they were like, people were amazed and they were asking, how did you do it? How did you have the strength? And they just, not having the experience of going through Kickstarter, they didn't know it wasn't that big of a deal. Not many people are going to say this, but it's not that big of a deal. And also designing a game, I believe, is not that big of a deal. I think anyone who has the wish to make a game, if his will is strong enough, he will make this game. It's not that hard. It could be a shitty game or, just run of the mill, regular, whatever game, but it will be a game and he'll probably be happy with the result. So I saw this, our first convention, as an opportunity to just call out people who have ideas. So Peter and we contacted some organizations and just pitched them the idea. What do you say that you give some kind of a price and we'll just talk to all the people we know about you. We'll advertise you as sponsors of the festival and so on and so on. And two businesses actually said yes. Okay. So at the first festival, we actually had two prizes. One from one company, the other one from another company, which was even better. So we said there are like 4 months to the convention. Anyone who has an idea and who can create any kind of prototype could just come, show it. We'll have a very special jury. The jury first year was really special because nobody knew who the other people were. So even the jury among themselves didn't know they were the jury. They were individually instructed. They played the games. And then I said, okay, so you are the jury. Now discuss the games and give one prize. And there was a second jury for one of the companies. There was one jury for one of the prizes, and for the other prize there was a different jury, also secretly instructed that they were the jury. So they went about, played the games. I think they were 9 games. Of these 9 games, the 2 winners both got published, which is amazing. And I think one more game was about to be published, but wasn't exactly published. It was self-published in a very, very small quantity. So it was a small run, but it was still some kind of success. Am I right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm right. I had to affirm that. So last year, on the second year of the festival, what we did was, because we saw that from these 9 prototypes, there were at least 2 that weren't really serious. So just people who said, okay, it will cost me nothing to print just something and show up with it and see if I can win the prize. So we decided to also include a small entry fee. And it was a bit, we had this small anxiety attack, like, should we put an entry price for this prototype contest? But it's a very small entry price, not small enough to be, just okay, I can pay it anyway, but not really highly priced, so that anyone who has an idea, believes in the idea, and thinks that he can actually get published, because that's the idea of the prize. The prize it always has something to do with publishing the game. So people who actually believe in their games and in themselves, in their teams, could join the contest. And I was surprised because 16 teams joined the contest. And the first year we had just 9 when it was free. So what I'm expecting for the next edition of the festival is at least, 20 people maybe joining. And at some point we might actually do some kind of, first to sign up, first to be guaranteed a place, because we might not have the space to fit so many designers. But it's good. It's nice to see that people are more interested in their own work. They believe in what they do, and they actually get shit done. They publish their games. We see many of these designs either published or they're still in progress and may be published one day. And I hope that some of them, get published soon. And I hope that others don't ever get published, but that's just me. So that's how it started. And then seeing that there is a big interest, and knowing that in Serbia, for example, there is some kind of community of designers, the next step was just see if we could, create some kind of, creative space where all of us could meet like once a month or something like that and discuss who's doing what. For example, if I make a prototype of a new game, I would like people with experience to be the first people to test it. So I would like to invite you and all the others from the community to play the game and just say, okay, I find this thing to be problematic. You could change this or that to fit, for example, a wider audience. Or if you want to get more specific, here's an idea. Because as you know, I'm sure that you know that, everybody knows that from the designer community, one game can be changed. So you can change the 5 or 6 rules and you get a different game. That's my problem with co-designing things, because if 2 people work on the same design and the tasks are not somehow spread among them, and they're both doing all the things. I don't know, you can tell me more because you worked with your brother on something like that, but I'm telling you what I imagine. So if two people have to work on the whole game, at some point everyone has an idea, and these ideas are both valid. So you get two different games actually, and they're both good games probably. And one is, for example, more fitting for a family. The other one is more fitting for hardcore gamers, and so on and so on. So I would like this community of designers to test the prototype and give all recommendations, ideas that they have at this time. And then I would be ready to present the game to a broader audience. Plus, you know how much motivation you can get from seeing other people work on their projects and say, okay, so if they can work on their projects, I can also work on my project, and stop postponing it for other things. And I think generally it's beneficial to have a community of people designing games, because, you know, we will get a better quality of games designed only this way. If everyone's working alone from home, we could get really, really good games. But if we work together and have, you know, an air of cooperation, but also an air of competitiveness, we could actually reach better results, objectively speaking.
Yeah, definitely, and it definitely gives people motivation, which I think is the main thing. And it's definitely given us a lot of motivation when the first time we entered the contest. We didn't even know so much what we were doing, but just knowing that, I think we learned about it like a month before, and we had this game at some stage, but it gave us the deadline to actually finish it. Or get it up to a point where we can show it to other people and have it be more playable. I think that motivation which we had from the contest, and then later, what really motivated me to do this podcast as well is when we were at a festival with you guys, and I remember after the festival, my favorite part of it was when all of the guys with prototypes and guys with stands and stuff. We went out, and it was awesome to talk to other people about this thing which you can't talk to everyone about because it's quite specific.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be an awesome idea to have a small space, which is the podcast, to bring out some people which I think have a lot to say about designing games, making games, organizing things around games, and just the community. So I think you get some of the blame for this podcast to existing.
Yes, this is a blame that I accept. Yeah. if it is blame, from all the blame that I won't accept, this is definitely not among it. I mean, this is blame I could accept, but I wouldn't say that I feel responsible for having this podcast online. I mean, I'm very glad that this is one of the results from what we're doing in the community, but I really see it as just someone had to start it. It just happened by chance that it was not only me, but, you know, Peter as well. And also Sasho, you know, Sasho. He's also part of the Sofia board game team now. So I think that we are both very proud of it, because the whole Player Lair, not only the podcast, but the website as a whole, is starting to turn into one of the pillars of the design community here. And it is a community. What you're talking about, you know, going out with the others after the convention, talking to them, sharing your passions. This is what a community is. You know, we are somehow connected by our shared love for board games, and creating this community and managing this community is my way to actually very egotistically receive some kind of pleasure from, you know, talking, communicating in other ways, including creatively. So that's like some kind of a friendship / work relationship with all of you guys, all the other designers. So in a way, I'm also benefiting not only for, yay, this community was created, but also I get a lot of motivation from it, and from the podcast as well. I'm amazed at how quickly you skyrocketed into going into interviews with some of the coolest designers out there at this moment. So my congratulations. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's really awesome, but it's awesome to talk to people like that because I've played their games a lot, and it's interesting to see what's behind the game. You know, how the thought process went for creating the game and where they stumbled, what they were they happy with the end result. Even like sometimes some people say that they did want to change stuff after publishing it, but then they had to kind of learn to live with it, you know, and then keep doing it, and all sorts of stuff like that. And I think the vital information for game designers is that you shouldn't just keep it at home, like you said. I think that you can get so much more when you share it with other people, and when you and the like least of all, maybe just make those connections where at some point you're going to need artwork for that game. You're going to need a way to advertise it, and by getting to know people in that community, you can ask around. And it's great that even the international community in board games is one that's quite easy to find. You can always go on. There's a ton of Facebook groups, and there's Board Game Geek where you can ask if you have a question. And most of the designers that I talked to did just that. They went out, they asked who does art for this, or how did Kickstarter go, or like Jamie Stegmaier, he has a ton of blogs on how he went through Kickstarter, and there's that information out there. But if you just keep it to yourself and at home, it's so much harder because you're gonna have to find out all of this stuff by yourself, and not getting that feedback is just gonna, like, our games grew so much. Even if it was after 3 or 4 playtests with that design group, I feel like they grew so much more than when it was just between us. And I can't even imagine, like you said, that you can't imagine or you can't imagine working with another person and not having the idea split. For me, it's so much more difficult when you don't have that other person to kind of keep the fire going, you know, because there's times when you kind of feel that you want to let the project go for a little bit and focus on other stuff, or you feel disappointed for some reason, maybe something didn't go right, but then you have that other person who can give you some ideas, or who can keep you motivated, basically. So I think what you're doing is definitely helping, and it shows because we have more and more games being released from Bulgarian designers and Bulgarian publishers.
Yeah, I also noted that at the last convention that wasn't our convention, there were also prototypes being showcased. So this is also some kind of a social wave that's going here through the community. People are starting, because Sofia Board Game Weekend, as the name implies, has a lot to do with the city of Sofia. It's just one city. It may be the capital city, and yes, people come to the convention from other towns. But what's great about our community here, our designers community, is that we can actually meet, like if we want to, we can meet every day. But that's not going to happen with the people who live in other cities because they are far away. And having local communities there is awesome. So when I saw other people showcasing their prototypes, I was like, yes, they finally got the idea. This is what should be happening. And then, of course, they are all invited to join us at the contest when the next Sofia board game happens, because, you know, I think that it's very cool to see ideas from people who are far away, because here, even Sofia, although it is the capital city, is not that big of a city. So if there is an idea, if there is a prototype, I give it, like, I mean, if it's been showcased in one of the clubs, I give it a week before it reaches me in a way. So I'll just hear about it. Someone will say, there is a guy who has this game and he's showed it. And I'll say, okay, just give me his contact. I'll talk to him, see what it is about, because I'm really interested in this thing. But I have no idea what people are working on in Plovdiv, Varna, Veliko Trnovo, Stara Zagora, other cities here in Bulgaria. So when they come to the festival, what I expect is a surprise, because I also want surprises. I don't want to know what the games who are going to compete in our competition are, because, you know, I will know some of them. I will definitely know some of them. And this is also a bit problematic since in the last 2 years time, I also participated in the juries that had to give the awards. And it's not that difficult for me to, say, okay, friendship is one thing, good game design is another thing. But knowing a game, because you don't really have the time to play 2 or 3 games of all the prototypes, and this would be something that will show you what the game really is, right? I mean, from one game you could get a very 1 in a million chance to like break the game in some way or so on, and you could totally get the wrong impression. So the hardest thing about it is if there is one game that you've played 50 times and there is one game that you've just played once, to actually put them on the same level. And that's, I think that's a problem for me. That's why I'm trying not to be on any juries, because I would like to participate in the development of games outside of a contest. I like to compete. And that's why I love board games, by the way. My favorite genre, it's not a genre, I'm not sure what it is. My favorite type of board games is the cooperative. I actually prefer cooperative to competitive, but I also like the competitive a lot. I mean, most games I own are competitive and I do enjoy them. But I don't want to be a part of a jury, having some previous knowledge about the games. And because I'm very curious, I usually have previous knowledge about some of the games at least. And that's why I'm looking for other people to give the awards. I just want to maybe consult on it, because another thing that's not really great about our contest. See, I'm not only saying the good things about the festival. There are some obviously not that great ones. Is like, for example, our contest has no rules concerning the genre of the game. So we have card games competing with board games, competing with social deduction games. As long as there is some type of board game element in it, it's all allowed. And it's very difficult to judge and give a prize to just one game when you could have like 4 amazing games just in different genres. You need some criteria that are actually making it in genre independent. But what would that be? And then we start into how marketable this is, because we also want to, we want to publish these games. Maybe not us. We just want them to get published, because it's not my hobby to publish games. I like to play them. Yeah. but yeah, it's really strange. It's a strange situation. Judging, I don't know, have you ever been a part of something like that on the side of the jury? But it's...
I'm very glad that you brought it up, because I really wanted to ask you about how you judge these games. Well, what I like about the way that it's structured is actually that you don't have any restrictions. So you can go in there with dexterity game, or you can go in there with a legacy or whatever. I don't think anyone has gone in with a legacy game, but theoretically you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, because it is very difficult. And I don't know if you heard about the last Board Game Geek Golden Geek Awards, where Wingspan won something like, I think, 10 out of 14 categories or something like that. And
yep.
And there was a lot of discussion on how is this thing being judged, and how do you judge things like that, whether it is board games or even in other mediums. I have no idea how to properly critique something when you have things that aren't even in the same genre.
Okay, so that's how we did it last year, and I think that's generally the direction that I want us to go. Last year's jury, they were handpicked again by me. So they are all from different aspects of the hobby. This is where we start. So we had one publisher, we had one owner of a club. We had a guy who is part of the board game journalism here in Bulgaria, a reviewer of games also. And our biggest mistake, because these three people were great, but we had one mistake, and it was a random person from the community. So we just put out some kind of, I think it was a Facebook game, like this post or share it and so on, and you might win this, to be a part of the jury. So a random guy actually. We just wanted someone from the community to participate. Some player. We wanted a player. He created a few problems. I'll admit that. I mean, people are strange. He was a strange guy. He had his criteria in evaluating the games. They were very different from what the other members of the jury were using. So what we did was talk to all of them before we started the contest, and just to be on the same page. And what they decided were some kind of criteria based on what they thought was best for this year. And I think they are almost always going to be the same ones. So we had originality, how original the game is. If it's some kind of a ripoff, it just does not deserve to win the award. So all the ripoffs, goodbye. So how originally, and here is the question: what does original mean? I mean, does it have to be some kind of a new mechanic? Because many people, for example, believe that there are no new mechanics to be explored. It's just about combining them in the right way and so on. So we allow everything. If the jury all think it's original, it's original. We also had I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, if it could actually be produced. That's why we had one distributor participating in the jury. So he could say, okay, this game could be made easily, or this game could never be made because of this and that. And we have to keep this in mind, because the award is always tied with producing your game. So it's you win some money, but you win the money with the idea to create the game, to publish this game. And if you're not going to publish it, why give you the money when we can give the money to someone who's actually going to publish a game? So this is also part of what the jury discussed. How finished the game is, because, you can participate with something that's just an idea, but it needs a lot of work. You can also participate with a polished prototype. So a polished prototype is always, it just gives you a better impression of what the game will be. And here the jury were free to decide whether one idea could be made into a better game than what the polished prototype of another exhibitor was as a game. So there is it's always some kind of subjectivity, some type of creative thinking on the part of the jury, right?
Yeah.
And then it was a discussion. Then I sat with them. I did not vote. I didn't want to vote, so I did not vote, because I knew two people who were participating. So I did not want to influence the jury in any way. I just listened to them. All the games were rated on the criteria. And then we just discussed the top three of them, because there were three that all had almost the same number of points. And for example, in this part, the last part of the judgment, how original and how publishable the game is were the two topics that were discussed mostly. And that's how the winner was decided. And I'm actually very happy, because I think it was a fair judgment on the part of the jury. So my remedy for actually having a good contest is picking the jury carefully. And sure, someone could say, but this means like you are deciding what people are going to play the game. So I know, for example, that the publisher is going to be looking for games that can easily be published, because he wants to profit from this. But that's just 1 out of 3 or 5 people. It's not enough to weigh in the favor of games that are ready to be published. The reviewer, for example, is a hardcore gamer. So he likes hardcore games, but he's also been working for another publisher. So he knows business-wise how things are. And he can really evaluate a game on its potential because he's been playing a lot of games. Distributors and publishers don't always play too many games. They're business people. But someone who reviews games, who plays games, is someone who can say, okay, so this is very much like this game. So he was very helpful on the originality part. There was also one representative of the company that gives the price, of course. But my problem with this was that usually these are people who like board games, but they've played Dixit and one social deduction game like Avalon, and maybe Catan or Carcassonne, these entry-level games that we have here in Bulgaria. I mean, not only here, but these are the entry levels for Bulgaria, definitely.
I think internationally there, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But here in Bulgaria, definitely, these 4 games are your gateway games to playing board games. So the representative, it was a woman, so she's played only these 4 games. She had some hard time understanding some of the more complex games, and all she was evaluating was the fun factor, which is also important because, playing games is supposed to be ultimately fun. Fun can stem from different types of activities, but if a game isn't fun, I don't know, maybe if a game isn't fun, it's still a game, but maybe not a game that we want to give the award to. So she just voted for the social deduction game because she said it was amazing. It was the best social deduction game out of, I put this in parentheses, out of the 3 games I've played. So I think it's the best because all people who played it had fun. But sometimes, playing the game also is about having the fun of being strategically dominant. And this is what the other people of the jury evaluated. So basically what happened was a very nice balance. And I think that handpicking the people, because I know all these people from different projects that I've done with them, is the best way to ensure that the jury is going to be a balanced jury. The jury is going to be to reach a conclusion that's not completely satisfying for each one of them, because everyone has a personal opinion, but I want it to be with people who have different opinions generally, but also are critical enough towards the games and towards communication that they are okay with reaching a mutual understanding. And this happens through knowing people and combining them into the ultimate jury monster.
I think what you're doing is really awesome. It's so cool to have a community like this, and I really think it makes for better projects. What would you say to guys starting out in game design? What would your advice be to them?
I'm thinking about myself before I designed Among Thieves. What would I say to myself? Because now I would just say to people, join the Sofia Board Game Weekend community, come play game with us and we'll help you out. You'll help us as well. So that would be great. But this question, I've been asked at least 5 or 6 times but generally not on a podcast, just unofficially. And unofficially, I always have an answer don't give up on your dreams, fail enough times, and so on and so on. But I think what I would really give them as advice to people starting with design is actually design more. Do as many projects as you can and do them even if you don't finish them, print out your prototypes, store them in boxes, then take them out from time to time and just play them with people. Don't be discouraged if it takes too much time to design something. If you are a perfectionist, obviously it's going to take you a lot of time, so don't worry about this. Also, if you can make something really, really quickly, just don't postpone it. Maybe that's the advice. Don't postpone it. Just do things. If you have the idea today. Tomorrow you might be tired of the idea. Tomorrow you might quit, and it could be a really good idea. So the other thing that you should do is share with the people, share with the community. Maybe if you give up on an idea, someone else will like the idea and just develop it. Because I think, I'm not sure if we've discussed this with you, but there is this fear of, I have a prototype, I'm not sure if I should share it with other people because someone might steal my idea and make it into a game. But that's an irrational fear. Just share it with other people. If they make a shitty game before you do your game, let them suffer. I mean, your game probably will be better. If you're doing games for a living, then don't listen to my advice, probably. But since you are probably doing this as a hobby, just, do your thing. Don't compare to other people. Just make sure you are happy in your space as a designer. If that means sharing, share it with other people. If it does not mean that, just still share it.
Yeah, I think the very first thing that you said about joining the Sofia board game community is something important. I think you should find your own communities, not specifically the Sofia board game community if you're not from Sofia, but like, go out and find a community is what I'm trying to say. And
absolutely,
don't be afraid to share. I think that's so important because even after you've done all the stuff that you mentioned, making prototypes, making bad prototypes, good prototypes, finished prototypes, and ideas, I think being able to share those things with other people, that's when you can see what works, what doesn't work, and which direction you should head, and make those connections as well.
Yeah, I also have actually two very practical advices more to add to this. One of them is keep a designer journal. This is what helps me a lot. I have at least 3 notebooks that when I have an idea, just write it down in the journal. It might stay there for, I don't know, a lot of time. Some of my ideas I rediscover 2 years after I've put them down in the notebook. And I'm like, wow, this was a great idea. I should totally work on it. I don't work on it, but one day I might work on it. Just keeping it there, because you forget things. When you have many ideas, you forget things, and it's good to have them somewhere stored that you might remember in the future. But if you have them written in your journal, you can remember them anytime. This is one of the things. The second one is more important, and it's very, very practical. If you want to be a board game designer, don't organize board game conventions, because it's taking up your time. You have absolutely no way to continue working on your prototypes. And also, you can never, probably ever, participate in your own awesome contests, because, it would be totally unfair. So if you want to be a designer, don't get into organizing things, except, organizing some kind of local meetups with other designers. That's acceptable, but no big conventions. Big conventions are a no-no.
All right. Thank you very much for talking with me.
Thank you as well. Thank you for having me today.